Hi, I'm Jenny Kanzler, and this is the exhibit titled The Estranged Familiar at the Greenbelt Community Center. The paintings are all in the vein of what I would call magical realism and feature a lot of dreamlike imagery and narrative from fairy tales and the like. The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, Hansel and Gretel for sure. So stories about children being separated from their parents, being lost in the woods and having to kind of find their way, and in the process finding this alternative world that is uncanny and magical. The Estranged Familiar comes from an essay on the topic of the uncanny that was written by Freud, and it's a very interesting essay about the idea of the uncanny being not just weird or oddness, but about being the sense of something having been home-like and like comforting, and then that sense of comfort being removed. I do have pieces that are, I consider more complete versus unfinished. And so this piece here would be one, while it still has some like loose drawing that I've just, sort of kept as part of the history of the piece itself. I do feel like it's finished in the sense that, the story is complete. There's like a kind of circular reasoning that happens, and it gets to a point where it feels like, okay, this has communicated, the feeling that I was trying to give it. So in this case, it's like that sense of, play, but also, wonder and the sort of mystery of the wilderness. Kind of like just playing with clay or like molding something, it just starts to take shape. And there's usually a point where I'm, adding things, taking them away. What does this mean if I put these two things together? How does this resonate? And then there's a point where I might like feel a little tinge of pain by something that I've presented, or it will make me like chuckle or laugh. And that's where I usually that's my guidepost, that I know that I've told a story, that I'm, that there's something there. And then, that's usually the point where I'm like, okay, this is like complete, but I just like, what do I need to kind of clean up before I put it out in the world? A lot of times, like what sparks a painting is there's something that I'm thinking about that, is, problematic on some level, and I want to understand and explore like why exactly or how, and so I might be kind of meditating on, a little bit of trauma, and then bringing lightness into it, bringing humor into it will often, alleviate that sense of it being like a very heavy subject. And I, a lot of times, like whatever the stories are that go into these, I don't tell the literal stories, because that's not the point. The point is more finding the balance between the darkness and the light. I feel like I've always been an artist. I just never stopped, All kids have that creative urge inside of them as they're, making their way. My sister and I, our mother was a painter, and we saw her making, painting, and she would draw with us, and there were things she could do with a red crayon. She could make like, we were just coloring, but she would put so much of the like substance on the surface that it looked like velvet. And that to me was just an absolute wonder. And I remember that was just that one thing was like, I want to do that. I eventually did go to undergraduate for sculpture at Syracuse University and have a BFA. Then I have a master's degree from the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Art in Philadelphia in painting. Oil is so malleable, and it really is like, coming from the sculpture background, being able to like mold things to like, bring things out and push things back. And I know you can do it with acrylic and watercolor as well, but to me it's easier to do it in oil paint because it resonates with me. I think a lot about how like one material transitions to another material. So if I'm painting an object, I'm very aware that there's like an atmosphere around that object. And if two things meet up, I really want to understand how they connect. In sculpture, you think about that a lot, like especially if you're doing mixed media, like how to attach things so that they feel that they logically make sense. When I was doing sculpture, because it was mixed media, I worked with material a lot. You know, I took loom weaving and I took felting and embroidery. So fabrics are really important to me in what I'm doing. I haven't fully gone as far as I want to go with that, but I do think a lot about pattern and fabric and how to get an effect where it looks like, like velvet. We went to a performance around the holidays and these girls did this movement. And it happened so fast. I was like, what was that? What just happened? I spent a lot of time trying to remember and figure out what they had done. And it reminded me of having seen the Queens of Egypt exhibit in DC many years ago. There were a lot of double figures doing these kind of different crossing over movements that were intertwined, in this beautiful way. So I was thinking about that, and then I ended up adding these very German dresses, which definitely, my grandmother used to make dresses like that, similar to that for me and my sister. For me, being an artist is a lot about being a kind of visual collector of things. And when I see something that affects me on an emotional level, I want to remember it. My way of doing that is to memorize it and to not forget it. And so I have this collection of meaningful memories associated with visual elements, and over time it turns into this really complex language, a personal visual language that you can pull from to tell stories and speak to yourself, because these are symbols coming from the outside world. They resonate with other people too. This piece is overtly about astral projection, so the separation of the soul from the body. It started out as a painting about that game that kids play at sleepovers called Light as a Feather, where you're light as a feather, stiff as a board. And then for me, on a deeper level, it's about, the duality of self, who a person is internally versus externally, and the way that our own experience of dreaming every night is an opportunity to reconnect with the self. When I came home from college, I fell asleep on the couch in my dad's house, and I woke up by hitting the floor. There was a thud, and I hit the floor. And I looked down, and my hands were on the floor, and I was pulling myself along the floor like you do when you're on the bottom of a swimming pool. I looked up and I saw myself sleeping on the couch. In the dream, I was separated from myself, and there was this sense of terror, but I was compelled to go up the stairs, and so I was making my way, as if I was swimming on the bottom of the pool, up the stairs. At the top of the stairs, we had this oval mirror, and I got to the top of the stairs, and despite feeling like I shouldn't, I looked in the mirror, and I saw this, fog in the mirror. And I didn't recognize it immediately as myself until I saw my own eyes looking back at me with horror. I recognized the emotion of the thing I was looking at matched mine, and that it was me, and this is what I looked like. And it was one of the scariest dreams I've ever had. And as soon as that happened, I just sort of sucked back down the stairs, woke up with my heart pounding on the couch. If I see something that I'm afraid of, I'm going to remember that. Or if I see something that makes me laugh I find it humorous in a way I haven't never seen before, like novelty. I think if something's novel, I know I'll remember it. Everybody speaks their own art language, and I think it's like writing. Anybody who wants to do it should do it and not worry about how it comes out or how it's received. And the most important thing is to be authentic and true to yourself. And if you do that and you put in the work over time, other people will appreciate it. Don't be intimidated. I still feel like I can't really draw. I'm always struggling to get it right. I just draw and redraw, and somehow there's some sort of it averages out into a line that makes sense. For me, it's really great to have a place to put things that I find interesting and that I want to investigate further. Beyond just visual art, I would encourage anyone who is interested in that sort of thing to take the time in their day to do that thing for themselves first. I know a lot of writers do like morning pages and they sit down and write 10 pages. For me, this is the way it comes out. I post new work on Instagram and my handle is @JennyKanzler. And I also have a website, which is jennykanzler.art. Thanks to Greenbelt Community Center for supporting this, and to Nicole DeWald for reaching out to me. This was really a wonderful opportunity to have so much work displayed in one space. Thanks for that.